Welcome everybody to the UFC 314 preview show, and it's an absolutely monster card in Miami, Florida this Saturday night, packed to the rafters with great fights. A star-studded card means a star-studded lineup for the preview show tonight. I'm joined by Seán Sheehan, Paul Browne, and Harry Powell, who's back in the hot seat for the preview show. Man has done many previews in the past. It's great to have him back. CEO of Balance Grappling. If you need any grappling stuff, get it over there at Balance Grappling. Get it off that man there. It's beautiful, looks beautiful. Get it on all the social media. So that's a free plug there, Harry. You're welcome. I'll get my check in the mail. But let's get down to business, lads, because we've got lots to discuss. The main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez for the vacant 145-pound title, is your main event on Saturday night. A 5-round co-main event, Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett goes down in the lightweight division. Jean Silva takes on Bryce Mitchell. Yair Rodriguez takes on Patricio Pitbull. Unbelievable fight. And we got Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. We're going to break down those fights in great detail. We'll brush through the prelims section of the card. And let's get into it. Main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Kind of a weird situation surrounding this fight, with obviously Ilia Topuria vacating his title to move up to lightweight, which left the division in somewhat limbo. Alex Volkanovski has a big chance here to reclaim his throne that he lost, obviously, to Topuria by knockout, and he's coming off of a little bit of a patchy stretch as well, having lost before that to Islam Makhachev. So it's a huge fight for Alexander Volkanovski coming in here to try and reclaim his throne. Diego Lopez has been fastly rising up through the 145-pound division. He has been kind of done really well in short notice fights and everything like that, but has he got the true test that he will kind of face on Saturday night against Alexander Volkanovski? I don't think he has, but he gets it. Will he fight and will he live up to those expectations? We will see. Seán Sheehan, I'll bring you in first just for a little bit of an overview on the fight itself, what it means to you. A fight maybe at this side of the pond in the UK and Ireland that's maybe being a little bit overshadowed, and understandably so. I said that we'd do what we'll always do here on the preview show. We'll talk the main card, but it's a fight that's very intriguing. There's lots of jeopardy. There's a good narrative coming in here for the old champ. Will he be able to claim it back, or this fresh young lion coming up through the division, if he can take this opportunity and get the biggest win of his career in Diego Lopez? You know, when you really break it down, this main event is an intriguing contest, and I'm very excited to see it go down.
Wildly intriguing, no doubt about it. As you said, the problem with it is Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler is the co-main event, and that's like one of the most intriguing fights I think we can get. I was just talking on another podcast there just before we started, and I think like I'll add this to my list of Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva, like TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt back in the day. What I'm giddy about, I can't wait to watch this. What's going to happen? But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But this shouldn't be lost that the main event is a really good fight as well, and a really interesting fight, and a fight that at this stage of both of their careers will tell us a lot about them. I truly believe this is a fight that will define Alexander Volkanovski's next, chapter, because he wins this fight and he goes on and he fights some really good guys, and it changes how people talk about him. You're a multiple-time champion. You took losses and you were able to come back. I'm sure one of you will be able to tell me that stat about the people over the age of 35, who've never won it. But if he loses, you're saying that loss to Makhachev ended your career. You were never able to come back from it. You were never able to take that step from like one of the best fighters to a great fighter. And I truly believe that's where this is. And we'll break down the fight more and speak about it more in a while. But that, I think, if you ask me for the context, I think that's the context of this fight for Volkanovski. Obviously for Lopez, he's the guy who's got his way there, become a challenger, earned these stripes. Some might say Evlaev should be in here before him, or maybe you could have an argument for one or two others, but he's coming in short notice. He does what the UFC likes, and he has earned this spot that way, and fair play to him. Can he do it? We'll talk more about that, I'm sure, very soon.
Absolutely, we will. I mean, John Anik came out this week and stated, what does this mean for Volkanovski? And I think Paul, when it comes down to the all-time great conversation, I know it's a kind of a lot of gray areas in those kind of conversations as well, but you know, if Alex Volkanovski was to come in here and win this fight, you know, he would be probably up there at the top of the list, because it's not easy to do what he's done. Like, history tells us that it's a little bit too late for him in his career right now. And, you know, he's always been a guy that wants to prove people wrong, and he's made a couple of wrong decisions. I think the time off for him coming into this fight will have done him favors, and it kind of adds that extra intrigue. I think if he rushed into a fight like this, there would be a little bit more doubt. But, you know, the doubt also comes with no excuses. There can be no excuses for Alexander Volkanovski. He didn't take this fight on short notice, Paul. You know, he's coming in here after a strong camp. So he's either going to be able to do this or he's not going to be able to do it. It's fairly cut and dry. How do you kind of see the last couple of months, years for him and his approach coming into this fight? And, you know, we had one of our own over there helping him get prepared, and Max Lally. I know you spoke to him before he went out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, he looks, first of all, I'll say is he looks in tremendous shape. And that's, you know, something that I wanted to see. Like, I wanted to see him turning up looking like he could possibly be the best version of himself that we've seen. But that's the big question. I mean, are we going to see it? We've seen champions over the years, they get knocked out once or twice and they go back to the drawing board and they knuckle down and they start to do everything right and cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and then they come back, but the chin just doesn't hold up. I mean, Chuck Liddell is probably the most obvious example of that, you know, went on a health kick to try and recapture that glory and came back, and Rich Franklin just put him away easily. And I just don't want to see that happening, but that's the question. Are we going to see it this weekend? It's there for him, you know, and he'll be a two-time champion. He's won the sort of hearts and minds of all the fan base, really, because truth be told, like, even when he was at his greatest, we all secretly hated him for beating Max Holloway, didn't we? You know, we all had a little bit of a grudge against Volk, but now he's come back and comedy Volk is just amazing, and all the fans love him, you know. His latest skit came out today on Twitter as well, and I was rolling on the floor watching that one. So we all love what he's about. He brings a good energy, but if he can go out there and become a two-time champion again, I mean, they could have that Indian summer at the end of his career, but we're all just waiting to see. I don't think anyone who loves MMA really wants to see Volkanovski get knocked out for a third time this weekend.
Yeah, definitely agrees. For sure, the people's champ anyway, without any belt around his waist, Harry. And I know he's a guy that you have admired in Alexander Volkanovski, and you've also admired and seen Diego Lopez come up through his career as well and get, you know, these kind of tests as well in his last couple of fights. Sabatini, Sadek Youssef, Brian Ige and Brian Ortega, or Dan Ige and Brian Ortega in his last fight too. So, I mean, in terms of for Diego Lopez first, maybe if you want to answer that, and then you can go on and circle back around to your thoughts on Alexander Volkanovski. You know, the litmus tests have been given out there for Diego Lopez, and it's up to him now to kind of maybe step up to the plate. But how big of a step up is this? Like, we don't really truly know. I think if this had been maybe a year and a half ago, you know, it would have been probably too much too soon. But a lot of people are kind of maybe quietly fancying Diego Lopez maybe in this fight, that he might be able to go out there and get his hands on Volkanovski early. But for me, it's going to have to be early. I'm curious to what you think the challengers' chances are in this fight.
It really depends on this first round, I think. I really, really think it depends on the first round. Like, if Diego Lopez performs anything like he performed in the Brian Ortega fight, if he can get to that low kick early and he can cause Alexander Volkanovski to change stances, if he can cause Alexander Volkanovski issues in the range battles, then we're going to see him land on Volkanovski. The difference maker, I think, specifically, is Volkanovski has always been the range master and has always been the footwork master, at least in this era of the 145-pound division. Now, for Diego Lopez, I think there are going to be significantly different challenges in terms of when he's on the back foot. I don't think the evasion techniques he used against Ortega are going to work in the same way against Volkanovski. He's going to find himself against the cage wall now. That might be somewhere where he's actually relatively comfortable. We've seen when he dropped Ortega 2 or 3 times in that fight that he was willing to go to the ground with Ortega. And I think that speaks, 1, to the confidence levels of his own grappling, but 2, to the confidence level of the power in his hands and his ability to do damage when he is on the ground, right? So for Volkanovski, I think the for Lopez's preparation for Volkanovski, if it does hit the ground, is it's going to be a completely different approach. Ortega is happy to play guard. He's happy to be working from close guard positions. He's happy to be working from half guard positions. Volkanovski is going to be the complete opposite. He is going to be wanting to get back to his feet, scramble to the cage, work underhooks, and turn himself off. So I think for Lopez, it's going to be, can I control Volkanovski before I land damage should it hit the ground? Whereas for Ortega, for instance, it was he's happy to play here. So I'm just going to focus on 1, not getting triangled, and 2, then landing damage. I think for Volkanovski, however, it's going to be Lopez loves to walk forward. He loves to land his big shots off the pull counter. Can Volkanovski, 1, negate the leg kicks? 2, can he negate the range battle? And 3, can he punish Lopez for just walking forward consistently? If the answer is yes, I think he's going to be a ghost. But the really interesting questions for me outside of the technical elements are the context of this. Right? How does Volkanovski feel stepping back into a vacant title shot instead of being the champion and feeling like he has earned, quote unquote, the opportunity by winning his way there? We're looking at a fella that's 36 years old and has lost by 2 knockouts in his last 2 fights. Lopez, you've mentioned, has had litmus tests for sure, but has he had litmus tests in the same way? Like, is Brian Ortega in 2024 the same litmus test that maybe a Max Holloway grinder would have been back in the day, right? I don't know is the answer. So I'm so intrigued as to, 1, how that first round plays out, because we know over the course of a fight, Volkanovski is somebody that will adapt his game plan round by round and will have looks and layers to that game plan. It's whether Lopez is going to be able to initiate enough of a reaction in that first round to force Volkanovski deeper into the game plans.
Yeah, indeed. A couple of great points there. And to kind of circle around and maybe create a different point to send over to you, Shawnee, is that, I think the peculiar thing about Volkanovski in this fight is that he's in the peculiar situation in his career where he's been in fights, apart from the short notice fight, I believe, from but that Islam knocked him out, where he's actually been looking good and then he's got caught. So it's not, we can't necessarily say that he's shot or anything like that because, the chin does kind of go. And it's got to be a factor coming in here early in this fight too. He's going to be thinking about this. And I'm very curious to see if he adapts a kind of lethargic, slow start just to kind of, ease himself into the fight in certain ways. Would you expect to see that from the former champ coming in here on Saturday night?
I think Volkanovski, as Harry eloquently put it there, is an excellent fighter at doing what he does. He's a shorter guy that's long, and he fights in a way that is very difficult for anyone else to fight. A lot of people, adjust to different fights, and less and less so in mixed martial arts, I think, these days. But Volkanovski is a guy I don't think he needs to do any major adjustments for a guy like Diego Lopez. Now, for fighting Islam Makhachev, and he's a beast wrestler, and he's 30 pounds heavier than you. Yeah, okay, that's a little bit differently. But for Lopez, not necessarily. I think this is a pretty simple fight, and will come down to if Volkanovski is finished or not. I think it's as simple as that, and I'll tell you why. Because Diego Lopez is not on his level. He's not close. He's not good enough. He's not nearly, not even close to being as good as Alexander Volkanovski was when he was at his best. The question then is Alexander Volkanovski still at his best? Or is he near enough to his best to beat Diego Lopez? And the other question is Diego Lopez good enough to beat a 70% Alexander Volkanovski? That'll be the key here, because he's not good enough to beat 100% Alexander Volkanovski. Let's just get that established straight away. Like, I went back last week and I watched some of Diego Lopez, and I said on the podcast at the weekend, and I said it I just did a betting show there, and I saw Zen Simon tweeting it the other day. It's like what are we missing here? Like, when you watch the tape, like, this guy's not good enough to fight Volkanovski. Like, this guy's not good enough to take on Volkanovski. It's all well and good. You put on your pace and, you go forward and you throw your shots.
Isn't that something that Volkanovski has dealt with very well in a similar enough style when he fought Max Holloway? Whereas that you're kind of getting a lesser version of this, I think, when you're looking at a guy like Diego Lopez.
Correct. And that's why I say, is it the same Volkanovski?
Yeah.
You know, because BJ Penn in 2003 beats everyone in the world. BJ Penn in 2010 or whatever it is getting, you know, destroyed by, you know, nobodies. You know, and it goes very quickly. And I understand he was doing well until he get knocked out. But that's, you know, that's like a little bit, do you know, I can give up the drink and I'll just have 2 points today. You know, those 2 points very quickly turn into your lying upside down in the canal after fucking, you know, going into rag week and drinking with a lot of 18-year-olds. You know?
Guilty. We've all been there, Shawnee.
That's the key to this fight. Diego Lopez cannot and will not beat Alexander Volkanovski if he's as good as he once was. And it's not, and let me just reiterate this and I'll throw it back out. It's not just about the physicality. It's not just about is he as fast as he once was. It's, as you mentioned, Erin, it's the mental side. Because like this is a problem. This is something we see an awful lot as well. Like lads are doing well for a round. Oh, good. And then they're like, oh shit, can I keep doing this? Can I keep going? And they fall apart and they're gone and it's over before they even have a second win to realize, oh, I can. That is the key here. Can Volkanovski get over that wall? Can he be Alexander Volkanovski? If he can, he'll win. And if he can't, maybe he'll lose.
And I'd like to I think, you know, and I'm not even saying this as a counterpoint. It's like, I think, you know, Volkanovski is probably not at where he used to be. You know, especially after what he's been through the last couple of fights, Paul, it's fair to say he might not be at, you know, the old prime Volkanovski, but I don't think he needs to be either in this fight. And I'm curious to hear like what you think is going to go down on Saturday night.
Yeah, like I think like the guys are saying there, skill set for skill set. I mean, there's no comparison. They're not on the same level. There's little details when you watch Volkanovski fight, and then when you watch Lopez fight, like they're just not in the same league at all. But that's not going to be the deciding factor. I mean, there will be tactical things that will possibly play into, you know, how the fight plays out. But overall, I don't think it's going to be a case of, you know, who's better than who. That's going to be the deciding factor. It's whether Volkanovski can take a shot, because he does get hit as you're going to when you're fighting very good fighters, the top end of the division. I mean, his last win, Yair Rodriguez, there was a couple of moments when you watch that fight, he gets touched going in to get a hold of Rodriguez a couple of times. And they're the kind of shots you would look at and say, right, could the Volkanovski of this week take that shot the way he took that then? You know, they were kind of two catastrophic knockouts, weren't they? Makhachev and Topuria. But the other thing you'd have to take into account with that is, like Shawnee mentioned, Makhachev's an absolute giant. There's a huge size differential there. Power differential obviously comes with that. And, you know, it's easier to head kick someone who's a lot shorter than you. So that played a part in that one. Who was also coming in there, wasn't he, on short notice for that fight too. And the Topuria fight, I mean, Topuria is different. There is nobody else at 145 pounds that hits like Topuria. You watch the start of the Volkanovski-Topuria fight. There's even when Topuria lands a low kick, and you can see Volkanovski is almost spun around by a couple of them, and it's like, oh, this is a different animal. This is like, we don't see these type of guys at 145 pounds. Diego Lopez is not either of those guys, and he's not remotely close and never will have that power. The question is, can he knock Volkanovski out even without having that power? Like, has he been through the ringer so much at this point? Because when you lose those brain cells, they don't grow back, and you know, your ability to take a shot diminishes rapidly. So that's going to be the deciding factor here for me. Stylistically, technically, tactically, we could break down all the little details, like how Volkanovski manages distance, how Lopez is great in the clinch, and he's very, very vicious and dangerous there, whether it's jumping guard and diving on a submission or digging those uppercuts. He's got that killer instinct. Volkanovski's great at staying out of those ranges should he want to. But I think the big deciding factor is what condition is Volkanovski's chin in order to take shots this weekend.
Yeah, it's very, very good points there, Paul. And I think it's crazy when we laid it all out on the table here and we look at it, is that the defining factors in this fights are shit that we cannot see. We can't get into the mind of Alexander Volkanovski. We do not know how he can take punishment anymore. And if you're Diego Lopez here, man, what you got to do is you got to get on him in the first round early, and you got to crack him a couple of times and maybe put a little bit of doubt into his mind. And I'm very curious to see if he can do that. Also, I'm very curious, and the want of Alexander Volkanovski, a guy who endeared himself to the fans. You wouldn't begrudge him, and you kind of want for him to get this moment on Saturday night. But MMA has proved in the past that beautiful moments like this sometimes can be hard come by. So I'm very excited to see what goes down in the main event, as I am very excited to bring up forward the chit chat on the co-main event. We could have had a side podcast for about 3 hours on this fight, I think, and we probably have to be a little bit wary of time of this Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. But how I'll open up the conversation is what matchmaking this is. This is fantastic matchmaking. A real defining moment in both of these guys' careers, and both of them are kind of opposite kind of trajectories. For Michael Chandler's been there, been around for so long, and veteran status, has come into the UFC, has made money, has entertained fights, got his name into the fans' ears, has been begging for a Conor McGregor fight for 700 years now at this stage. The one thing about, may I say this, and I'd rather not talk about, I hope Chandler doesn't win so that I don't have to see him calling out Conor McGregor, because fuck that. Who wants to see it? Paddy Pimblett,
he lost and he still called him out the last time.
It's fucking ridiculous. But anyway, Paddy Pimblett is the man who could stand in the way of that call out on Saturday night, and he himself has been he's been preparing for moments like this for his entire career. A guy who's come up through the Cage Warriors ranks, won the title, lost the title, turned down numerous opportunities to go into the UFC until he said himself he was quote unquote ready to do so. And he has come into the UFC, and he's undefeated in the UFC, and he's been getting those tests. But this seems to be the ultimate test for Paddy the Baddy right now. And, this is absolute cinema. So it is. And Shawnee, I know you're buzzing for this fight, so I've got to bring you in first to wax lyrical about it.
Love it. Love this fight. It's the best of us and it's the worst of us. This fight is, it's flawed fighters and fun fighters and guys that we know can lose and we know can win, and we don't know who's going to win and we don't know who's going to lose. And what the fuck do we watch this sport for? Only that. Like, I believe Gerald Meerschaert versus Brad Tavares last week was the most predictable fight in the history of the sport. Like, Brad Tavares won by decision. I tweeted before the fight started. I said, spoiler. And we have maybe the most unpredictable fight in the history of the sport here now between Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler. Like, will Chandler come in and just toss hands at him and knock him spark out? Or will Paddy Pimblett dodge a couple of them, probably get hit with a couple of them, fall on top of him and triangle him or guillotine him or something? Or will Paddy throw a big shot, maybe knock him down, jump on his back, choke him out? Will Chandler wrestle? Is that a possibility? It could be it should be a possibility, but I don't think it is, because Chandler just doesn't give a fuck anymore. And I love this fight. There's so many possibilities here, and it's not even about the intricacies. It's not even about the technical details and all. And maybe the lads might throw some of them out at us, and they'll be good too. But the madness is why we're watching this one. The hilarity. I'm sure there'll be a press conference. There'll be a few jibes thrown back, and Paddy will get. Do you know what could happen? Like, Paddy can get knocked around the place, bleeding, falling all over the place, win a dodgy decision, and he'd be like, "God, Scousers can never get knocked out." Like, the possibilities are endless with this, and I love it. I will say one thing on maybe the technical side. Went back last night, watched Paddy Pimblett versus Tony Ferguson, and I'll tell you what, if he fights that way, he will get knocked out. He absolutely. Tony Ferguson landed so many punches. Paddy looked so bad in that fight, but then he looked great in the Bobby Green fight. Like, changed everything. Like, his footwork, standing in the pocket, no longer happened. He was on the outside. But like, how is that going to work against Michael Chandler? Let's wait and see and find out. But I'll tell you, I'll just say it last day. If he does fight that way again, if he fights in that pocket, if he try, and this is 5 rounds as well, let's not forget, if he conserves energy by not doing his outside movement and fighting from outside of a range, he will get knocked out, because we know Michael Chandler doesn't care about the 5 rounds and he'll just go at him. So, God, I can't wait for this. Brilliant
Absolutely fight. Sensational. Paul, when you look at both of these guys and the style that they fight at and the kind of fights that they exist in, 2 of them are so unorthodox. the fact that they are and they fight that way, it makes this fight a little bit more intriguing from an analytical perspective. You know, how hard is it to break down? Because we really don't know what to expect here, because Michael Chandler doesn't fight with any level of fight. Like, Michael Chandler's fight IQ is back in the fucking Bellator cage. Like, he left it there because he didn't bring it over to the UFC. He just came over here and he wanted to sling. You know what I mean? And that makes it exciting. And Paddy Pimblett has this unorthodox style as well that's hard to read and hard to gauge. You know, it's a tough one to kind of break down analytically, and it might just boil down to the simple factor of, you know, who lands the right shots or who has the right game plan coming into this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chandler, like you mentioned, doesn't really bother with fight IQ these days. I think he had sort of run his race in Bellator and maybe was on the wind down in his career, and then just got the opportunity to fight in the UFC and thought, you know, to hell with it. I'm just going to go in there and Justin Gaethje the shit out of this, and even ended up getting the fight with Gaethje and just threw down with him. And he does that in all of his fights. You know, he just sees this as bonus hour now. You know, he gets to have some fun, and he's been picking up like he's become a figure of fun, obviously, over the Conor McGregor thing. Almost did get that big payday. It's gone now. Waiting around for so long, and people, you know, laugh at Chandler and, you know, scoff because his record at the UFC is 2-4. But I think he got like 5 performance of the night bonuses over those 6 fights, and, you know, he's been in some brilliantly entertaining fights. He just goes for it, which this is part of the reason we want to see that this weekend, you know. And there's always the chance that Paddy will get chinned, because he's always fought like someone who looks like, God, he's going to get chinned when someone catches him, because the defensive awareness wasn't there. But as the guys are talking about there, Shawnee was mentioning it, Paddy did change his approach after that Tony Ferguson fight. Now, the last fight, the King Green one, that was a 3-round fight, wasn't it, if I'm not mistaken, or it was scheduled to be a 3-round fight.
It was a 3-rounder, yeah.
So what he did was he blew his wad really in the Tony Ferguson fight. Like, he didn't look in fantastic shape, like, but he kind of ran out of diesel at times and, you know, ate some shots, and he fought a lot differently going into the King Green fight, stayed there patient on the outside, and, you know, with all the histrionics that, Bobby Green, not King Green, throws at him, he just didn't get involved in it, didn't get drawn into it. And, you know, he just took his time and he capitalized on his opportunity when it came. So I think, having watched just little interviews with him this week, snippets out of on Embedded, he looks like he's prepared for this one. He looks in phenomenal shape, I have to say. Like, he generally does when he turns up to fight. But I think this week, I mean, I was watching just the 3rd episode of Embedded today, and he's hitting pads, and I'm like, he even looks better than he used to do, you know. And
yeah,
he, I have a feeling, you know, just from listening to him talk, he was saying when his kids came along, he kind of just knuckled down a little bit, because he saw, like, you know, in his words, he was saying, I used to kind of get by on my talent alone, and now it's not that, you know, that old phrase about hard work beats talent.
Yeah, well, talent mixed with hard work is a dangerous ingredient, so it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, I agree with Sean's assessment, is that if we saw the version of Paddy Pimblett that we did see, and I was down at that fight too, and he fizzled out of that fight big time. If we see that on Saturday night, it's not going to end good for him. And, you know, I think the fact that he has changed his tune, he is in good shape, Harry. I feel, you know, he's swapped around the burger for dumbbells, and I think he did it at the right time, and I think he's getting the right tests to prove if that's really going to work. How do you kind of see it? I know we've all been critical of how far Paddy can go, and we were all critical of his approach as well. And we have to give credit where credit is due. He recognized that himself. He's got a new lease of life and a new lease of dedication towards mixed martial arts. But when you're fighting here and you're getting into the territory that he's getting into, you've got to do that.
I mean, look, us celebrating a fella that's 25 fights deep into his professional career at not being a fat cunt outside of camp is insane, lads. What the fuck are we talking about? Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Like, don't get me wrong. Sure, fair play. But my boy, you've been in the UFC for 3 or 4 years now, and now you're deciding to work hard. Fuck off. Like, fuck off. Like, don't get me wrong. It's a fun fight. I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong. I like it for all the reasons that Shawnee said. But we're looking at a relatively average fighter that's been given a opportunity to get to the position that he's in. And this is the perfect fight for him to stake a claim at either a top 3 ranking and or a call out at a title shot, right? Like, Chandler, as Paul has already said, 6 fights in the UFC, 4 losses, 2 wins, 5 bonuses. You know what you're getting with him, especially in this area of his career. He is not going to fight smartly. He is going to come forward. He is going to try and be entertaining. The question for Paddy is, has he cultivated enough skill, not talent, but skill, over the 25 fights he has had thus far to dissuade somebody of that ilk? To dissuade somebody who is not fighting like a quote-unquote professional fighter would, that is looking to achieve what Paddy is looking to achieve. Now, I don't think we know the answer to that question, and we are going to find out. I echo the sentiments of the boys that if he fights like he fought against Tony Ferguson, it's going to be over, and it's going to be over quick. Like, inside 3 minutes quick. But if he fights like he fights against Bobby Green, then sure. But again, we're celebrating a performance against somebody like Bobby Green, the actual performance itself, right? Forget the opponent and everything else. We're celebrating a performance that you now see on an undercard at Cage Warriors. Like, again, I just don't fucking get it, right? What we said is a lad stays on the outside against a fella that's unorthodox. Congratulations, like amazing, Like I just don't fucking get it. Like I understand that the fight will be fun. It definitely will be, and Paddy's good for the chat. And if he's come in professionally this time, then he is putting himself in the best position to succeed. And maybe it is because he's now got the impetus with his children, and I believe everything that he says in that specific realm. I also think he understands exactly what this fight is for him. This is an absolutely gargantuan springboard for him on a massive card, co-main event, very winnable fight. And he goes in, wins this. He has a massive, massive fight next.
May I ask you? I was going to bring you in. May I ask you, because you're on that point right now?
Yeah.
Do you believe that Paddy Pimblett is signing his own death warrant with a win in this fight?
No, because what else is he going to do? Like he is a prize fighter at the end of the day, and the way that you earn prizes is by fighting the biggest fights, right? If he does, God forbid, if he does get a title shot here, right, like after this fight, then
I wouldn't think title shot now, but I mean,
sure,
there's
but
not
you know what I
much,
mean, right?
There's not too much left after this, like
exactly.
I mean, in terms
there's
of
not
competition.
Too much left.
And I think he has been matched up fairly well up until this point, even including this fight as well. But
I agree.
Yeah, there ain't.
I think that if he was to win this weekend and Ilia Topuria was to win the lightweight title 2 or 3 months from now, I think the clamour for them two to fight for the title would be just overwhelming.
Yeah, and what would happen in that fight? Dead.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah. But the question was, like, is he signing his own death warrant? It depends what you mean, right? Is he fighting his own death warrant?
If he wins this fight, he's not going to be able to take on the likes of the Bobby Greens and a 38-year-old Michael Chandler. 100%. I mean, if he wins this fight, you're talking the Dustin Poiriers, Charles Oliveira's, Arman Tsarukyan's, Rafael Fiziev, Justin Gaethje's.
But he only has to lose one of them.
Yeah.
He only has to lose one. And then the UFC will be...
Harry, is he signing his death warrant by fucking signing the fight with Michael Chandler? By the way you're talking, kind of sounds like he...
Look, I mean, I think what Paddy hasn't seen up until this point, the best athlete that he's fought is Michael Chandler. Even at 38 years old, right? The best athlete, the most explosive athlete, probably the hardest hitter he's fought is Michael Chandler, right? So do I think he has enough skill to beat Michael Chandler? 100%. I definitely think he could do that. Do I think Michael Chandler could bury himself into a guillotine? Do I see him pushing Paddy up against the cage and getting flying triangled? 1,000,000%. One of the things that, we've all spoken about on the previous show before, but specifically when we've covered Paddy Pimblett previously, he is an absolute sniper. The A1, the elite level skill set he has is if he catches hold of your neck, it is done, right? He is excellent when he gets hold of your neck, whether it's guillotines, rear naked chokes, triangles, darces, anacondas, whatever it is. If he gets hold of your neck, he is a significant problem. And I am almost certain Michael Chandler would happily bury himself in if he can throw an overhand right. The question is...
he's only lost once ever by submission, and that was to Dustin Poirier 2 fights ago.
Sure.
But I'm not denying what you're saying. I'm just stating a fact there in terms of Dusty P there behind Paul Browne there. But Sean, look at, there's hands on the chins, there's expressions on the faces. You're after hearing a lot of breakdown there. How do you round this all up here?
Oh, there's plenty of chins to put hands on. It's honestly, I watched that. I was picking fucking Paddy Pimblett all week. I sent in the picks to Andy and whatever, and I picked Paddy Pimblett. I watched Tony Ferguson fight last night. I was about 2 minutes in, and I was picking Michael Chandler. I watched a Bobby Green fight. I was picking Paddy Pimblett again. And then I sat down there for 5 minutes and I listened to Hardy speak. And I was like, I'm a fucking idiot. How the fuck am I picking Paddy Pimblett in this fight? What are we doing? Like, Michael Chandler's just going to punch him in the face and knock him out. Like, he is.
It's very possible. It's very possible.
Like, I know. Okay. I don't want to do what I did with Leon Edwards again, right? Where I tricked myself into thinking Leon Edwards was actually like a very good fighter, right? He's not really. And he ended up he won the fight, whatever. But like, Paddy Pimblett is not a very good fighter either. Like, he's improved. But as Harry said there, like, you're fucking 30 fights into your career. You're one shot away from a title shot, maybe. And we're still talking about, you learn not to get punched in the face by BJ Penn dressed up as Tony Ferguson. Like, Jesus. No.
One thing I will say. One thing I will say, just in Paddy Pimblett's favor. Like, he has absolutely taken skill acquisition more seriously in the last 3 years than he has at any other point in his career. He's taken himself out to America. He's training with Justin Flores. He's putting himself in different rooms where there are far, far, far better fighters. He's brought over wrestlers of a variety of calibers to the UK in order to try and train with them, in order to get different looks. So I'm certainly not saying that he hasn't invested in that skill set. I'm certainly not saying there aren't ways in which he can start to cause Michael Chandler some problems. I just think that, as I alluded to before, we're fucking 30 fights into your career, mate. What are we doing? So if Michael Chandler, even at 38, has the level of athleticism, even a shade of the athleticism that we saw against Charles Oliveira and or Justin Gaethje and or Dustin Poirier and or the other Charles Oliveira fight, then I think he can cause Paddy massive, massive problems, because skirting on the outside of the cage, having that evasive footwork, having that evasive movement, looking to pick off jabs here and there and everywhere is not going to be enough to try and tame someone like Michael Chandler. Unless you have something like Justin Gaethje power, where he is so nervous of getting cracked, so nervous that there might be just a touch of hesitation. Paddy doesn't hold that power. He absolutely doesn't. Now, if he is pushed against the cage, we know that he has very, very, very vicious submissions, very, very, very sniper-like submissions. But is Michael Chandler going to care, or is he just going to try and, jump backwards and slam Paddy to the mat or something fucking crazy? I don't know. But
Could a team of this card be lads being over the hill? Like, Michael Chandler might very well be over the hill. He might have that speed.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say, we haven't talked about Volkanovski, but the next fight we're probably talking about Patricio Pitbull as well. Just because it's his first fight in the UFC, he might be over the hill as well. So
your man's 37 with 115 fights.
Michael Chandler's 39 next week.
And that's why when I'm sitting and I'm thinking about this fight as well, it's like, so many times in the past I've picked Michael Chandler in a fight like this, and a lot of those times I've been wrong, because every dog has their day as well. And the UFC as a company, I always look at it from this way as well. The UFC or our company have matched Paddy Pimblett in a fight that gives him the best possible chance to win and move up the table. They're protecting him in many ways, and they have protected him in many ways throughout his uprising through the UFC. And they've protected him in this too, because all the names I mentioned previously could have been easily put in there against Paddy Pimblett. Right. Michael Chandler is probably, if you were to look at the top 6 or top 7, the most vulnerable person in the lightweight division right now for you to kind of fight. So, those are the factors I'm thinking. His renewed dedication. Like, I mean, we can talk about that. I'm only talking about that as him being just good enough to take this fight with that renewed dedication. This is going to be a wild fight. We're going to see lots of momentum shifts in this fight. We're going to see, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Paddy was dropped. I wouldn't be surprised if Chandler kind of was coming in and trying to wrestle him and try and land damage, and he hang on and he survived, and then Chandler gets tired, and then Paddy might lock in the late. Like, this is going to be absolutely insanity for as long as it lasts. I think Chandler is going to do well in the early stages here, but he might fizzle out and end up getting caught in the submission. That would be my official pick, but I ain't confident in that pick whatsoever, and I'm more than happy to admit that. And that makes a great fight. And it's crazy. I could go on and talk about it for a hell of a lot more, but as I said at the start of this conversation, we got to keep it moving. There are other fights in the card, but my goodness, like this is fantastic. And we're going to, all the questions, all the doubt, I just want to reiterate, this is not going to be a thing if Paddy Pimblett wins that he's the next big thing in lightweight, because this is the start of numerous problems for Paddy Pimblett, in my opinion, in the 155-pound division. We're only scratching the surface here in the top 10. And I'm very interested to see how he handles this fight and handles the future as well.
Poor old Paddy, he can't even get a bit of credit. You're taking away the win from him before he even fucking gets it. Bad form now.
That's Harry's fault now. I was trying to come in with a more positive thing. Okay, Powell comes in as the voice of truth and voice of reason there and settles us all. I was seriously doubting my pick as well, but I'm going to stand firm. I think Paddy gets it done. I think, that's why this fight was created, and, we'll see what happens.
Impossible.
We will talk Patricio Pitbull and Yair Rodriguez. I'd like to touch on Bryce Mitchell, Jean Silva. An interesting fight in 145. To me, I think the simplistic breakdown of this fight, Paul, is can Jean Silva stop the takedown and land his damage?
Yeah, fuck Bryce Mitchell, thug Nazi. We're going with that
thug
one.
Nazi, I love it.
I think we should stick with that one now. Yeah, he's a really good grappler and he's very, very dangerous. But by God, he's not a good striker. He's really not. He's beaten some good fighters, but then the couple of guys that have beaten him, they've knocked him out badly, and they're the guys who can strike and hit hard and are also really good wrestlers. And he's just looked so lost and confused in front of them. So a lot of it is going to depend on how well Jean Silva can defend the takedowns, because Mitchell, if he knows what's good for him, he's going to just try with everything he has to get this fight to the ground. Because
he's going to try and do what he did in the Edson Barbosa fight. He's going to try and do what he did in the Dan Ige fight, and that's it. I want nothing to do with the stand up here. And how can you? And it's not going to be easy. I was fairly confident on Jean Silva, and as soon as what we all have difficulty, and I think what fans will have a difficulty in kind of understanding how this fight is played out, is because Bryce Mitchell is a fucking dummy and he's an idiot and he spouts absolute fucking scutter out of his mouth about Nazis and all other types of crazy shit. But you know what? Those are opinions, and those opinions will be left at the cage door on Saturday night. And it's down to skills versus skills in this fight. And when you really look at the skills versus skills, it's a stylistic clash against an explosive striker and a heavy wrestle grappler. And he's fought this kind of test before, has Bryce Mitchell, and he's passed with flying colors. It looks horrendous. It's a boring fight. What we all want to see is, our opinion of Bryce Mitchell to be absolutely destroyed there on Saturday night. But we have to leave that to the side and actually, Shawnee, kind of go skills versus skills in this one.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, have we all seen that video going around of Charles Jourdain against also, how is his nickname not Long John Silva? It should absolutely be Long John Silva. Anyway, he fought Charles Jourdain 9 months ago. Charles Jourdain, and he took him down over and over and over. God almighty, it's very hard to look at that from 9 months ago and not think Bryce Mitchell has at least a chance to win this. He's like 5-1 to win the decision here. Bryce Mitchell can win this fight. There's no doubt about it. But Jean Silva, he does look like he has turned the corner. But at the same time, to Harry's point, he's fucking 17 fights into his career. He's 28 years of age. Maybe that should have happened a while ago. But look, he looks really good. He looks very, very good. What he did to Drew Dober, you can't ignore that. The Bagdasharian fight was a very, very good win as well. He looks a beast, and I would expect him to go out there and put it on Bryce Mitchell, he's not that good, right? He's not that good. If he can keep the fight standing, he will knock him out. But Bryce can wrestle. If Bryce is able to take him down once, I think he's in big trouble, because he will take him down over and over and over again. And Bryce's good cardio and stuff and all that, drinking the Lord's juice and all that really helps you to go to 3 rounds. So it's an interesting fight. It very, very much is. But I think we're all pulling for Bryce Mitchell to end up in an ambulance, on the way out of this one. So hopefully that happens.
Indeed. Harry, quick thoughts on this before we move over to Pitbull and Yair?
I'm mostly going to be interested in John Silva's range choice. So usually he stands quite long and quite low with quite an open guard. Now, if that's going to be the case, and he's always leading to set up that right hand, right? I'm interested to know whether he's going to try and bring those feet together just a touch, either so that he can sprawl out quicker or so his down block hand can be engaged quicker. In his last performance against Melsick, who, let's be honest, is a good fighter, right? He was very patient. He waited. Lots of really snappy body kicks from that right-hand side, which I think we'll see far less of, given the opportunity for Bryce to catch them and then start to initiate the grappling. But we may see the low kicks. We may see the turning side kicks because they're, dependent on the angle, slightly less risky. But that right hand is coming and he's waiting for it. I just question whether the range choice that he is most comfortable with, in which he is the most patient, is going to prove dividends in this matchup, or whether it's going to be a hindrance. And so that's the biggest sort of fundamental question that I have for this fight.
Yeah, indeed. Paul, I'll bring you in one last one as well. I mean, one thing that I've been impressed with Seán Silva is that explosiveness. But, that explosiveness can get you in trouble against a fighter with the style of Bryce Mitchell here. Is that something that you feel might affect his approach coming into this fight?
I think, I have a feeling he's just going to try and do his normal thing. And whether that's going to be, he's going to turn up there with his A game. That I get that feeling anyway going into this one. Whether that's going to be the sensible move, we'll find out on Saturday night. He's ridiculously fast twitch in comparison to Bryce Mitchell. They're two very different species, entirely inside the octagon. But, I don't know. I think the confidence that he's going to have in those hands, and he's just going to be, that knockout of Melsick was just sensational, and that's going to, I think that's just going to instill the next level of killer confidence in him. He's going to be, I think he's just going to come in and try and do what he always does. He's going to try and take his head off. Like Harry mentioned, that wide base as well. It's very difficult to sprawl on takedown attempts, but I think we're going to see Bryce Mitchell. That heavy knockout he suffered at the hands of Josh Emmett isn't that long ago, and I think we're going to see maybe he's going to be apprehensive at times. If he doesn't get a takedown straight away, he might do what he did in that Josh Emmett fight. He might kind of freeze up a little bit. He looked like a rabbit in the headlights, and he was there to be caught, rushing in from quite a distance. So I have a feeling that's what we're going to see. Yeah,
very interesting to see what happens.
Also, if we could get rid of all the high fives, that'd be fucking great.
The high five, Seán Silva.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a distraction tactic. I kind of actually have a little bit of respect for it too. But I used to, I digress. Let's go on to Yair Rodriguez and Patricio Pitbull. From 145-pound fight between Mitchell to another in Yair and Pitbull here, Shawnee. This is a really interesting and intriguing matchup as well. Obviously, I think Graham hit the point. The only crux of this one is that maybe it might be a little bit, and I would say it is a little bit too late for Patricio Pitbull, but that doesn't mean that he can't go out there and get the job done. My simple analysis of this, and we spoke about this on the Contender on Patreon, is that Patricio Pitbull is in a difficult situation here in this fight, because if he stands and bangs with Yair Rodriguez like he normally likes to do, I think he's going to be in for a world of trouble, because Yair is such a dynamic striker and so difficult to figure out. You will, get yourself in a lot of trouble, and a lot of fighters have by doing so. What do you need to do to beat Yair? I feel that you need to take him down, you need to dominate him, you need to put him on his back, and you take that striking away from him. You do that and you win a quote-unquote boring 3-round decision. Does it line you up for a title fight here? So that's the double-edged sword for me that Pitbull is kind of coming into this fight in, and I'm very curious to see what decision he makes when the cage door closes.
I'll be honest, I don't think he has the privilege of deciding, about the prettiness of a win here, because it's a tough enough matchup for him. The thing is, right, there's two ways of beating Yair, and you hit the nail on the head of one of them. Take him down, dominate him. The other one is kind of like, as we see it with a lot of those kind of outside languid fighters, where you kind of break into their range and bomb an overhand inside, and they flail backwards. And Patricio, that's his game, kind of. Like, he's really, really good at doing that. The problem with that against Yair is he's not as fast as Yair. He is not as big as Yair. And he's,
will he be able to find the range as well? That's what I'm very...
That's what I mean. And that's the key to get in. Like, it's not the range so much of the punching range. Well, it is. But it's the range with the feet to be able to actually get in there. Like we spoke earlier on with Paddy Pimblett, as I talked to that, like, he needs the range fucking outside as far as he can possibly get it. Patricio needs it inside as far as he can possibly get it. But the biggest problem when you're fighting a guy like Yair Rodriguez, he's just gonna you walk forward, he's just gonna touch the outside of your leg, go left, go right, throw a little teep up through the middle if he needs it, maybe throw a jab or throw a head kick, but he's just gonna run and run and run for the whole night and try to stay away from you. And that's very tough. The one thing I would say, though, for Patricio, he's 37 years of age right now. He had lost a couple of fights. Remember, he went down and he fought Sergio Pettis, and then he fought on short notice against Suzuki and got knocked out in a round. He did come back last year and beat Jeremy Kennedy. And Jeremy Kennedy fought last week, and in my opinion, that Mavlid fight, Mavlid won, but Mavlid didn't win that fight. It was a draw. Definitely robbed of a draw anyway. But
my fellow Canadian.
Mavlid is a very, very, very good fighter, and Jeremy Kennedy, 10-8 him in the first round, and Patricio walked through him and beat him over 3 rounds. So that's a good sign of he's not finished yet. No, okay, that was over a year ago, but still. But look, how does Patricio win this fight? He does what you say, go in and take him down. I think that's probably the best way. Or just fucking bull him, walk forward and throw your big fucking overhand and hope that Yair gets tired. I think that's probably the way to do it, but Patricio doesn't do it. Patricio is more of a wait and draw you in type of fighter, but Yair doesn't get drawn in. With all that said, this could be a fucking bore fest. It really could if that happens, but hopefully not.
Yeah, it could be. I definitely agree with that. Paul, how do you see the fight going now?
I think it's very likely that we might see Yair Rodriguez fight a lot out of the southpaw stance. He generally bounces between the two, and he's predominantly an orthodox fighter, but I think he's going to negate one of Patricio Pitbull's best weapons, that lead calf kick, isn't he? If he fights a lot in the southpaw stance, and he's the kind of guy who can do that seamlessly. He can shift over there and look just as good off the other side as he does off his original side. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. And it's about that. It's just managing the distance. Could we see Patricio come in and Michael Chandler it? Just throw caution to the wind and just, he's in the exact same boat. Your career was
exactly
just about
my
done.
point.
You were about to retire, and now you've got this opportunity. I don't think it serves him to come in here and just stand there waiting for his opportunity to maybe land something. I think, it's going to be bite down on your gum shield and go to war this weekend. I
definitely think so, but it's my counterpoint to that is this such a big moment for him because he knows a win could guarantee him a UFC title shot. You know what I mean?
He's not that sort of fighter, is he? He's Chandler always had a bit of that in him. Patricio is not that sort of fighter. It'd be a big, maybe he will do it, but it'll be a big change in his career.
Well, maybe that's what he needs though, to kind of piggyback off your point, Paul. Is that what you're saying? He could maybe just turn the script, or what was it? Flip the script is what the word terminology I was saying there. Would you think that's what you could come in and try and surprise Yair here?
Yeah, well, it would be a surprise, but if he did it, but I'm just wondering, is it in his mind? Because I watched his interview on ESPN about 10 days ago, and he was kind of saying that he was pretty much retired, or he's more or less about to. But now this opportunity's presented itself, and maybe he will decide. I'm going to grab this with both hands. Yair Rodriguez is a fighter who's very good, and everything he does looks flashy, looks great. Substantially, I don't think he's fantastic whatsoever. I think he's very, very beatable with the right game plan. I think because he looks so stylish and cool when he fights, he gets a little bit more shine as a result. But when he fights people who are really top tier, he always comes up short. So I think Patricio Pitbull, I think if he does bring the fight to Yair Rodriguez, he can break him this weekend, and that's a big if. You mentioned that Jeremy Kennedy fight, he looked really good in that Jeremy Kennedy fight, and we saw Kennedy last week. I was very impressed with Kennedy last week. So maybe he's still at a very good level.
It would be a little bit foolhardy, I think, to rely on MMA mats for this one a little bit too. It's interesting to see. For me, I think, we drew a lot of similarities, Harry, between, the Volkanovski fight and this fight in terms of where they're at in their career age. And I'd like to draw the similarity about, maybe the mental battle that will exist in this. Because one thing I would say about Patricio Pitbull is that he is definitely, determined and has good durability. We haven't seen him break that much in fights. But we have seen that with Yair. I think if you can get Yair, you can take some of that confidence away from him. And, that may be a factor coming into this fight coming for me. What do you see happening in this one?
I think it's hard to say because brand new organization, big opportunity. But the big thing for me is the retirement question. If you come out and publicly say, sure, look, I was basically retired. What does that actually mean? Like, what does that mean in terms of, have you accepted that your athletic career is either coming to an end or has come to an end? Is that because there's like a natural pairing of, Bellator, PFL fold? What do we want to be in terms of an athlete? Do we feel that the UFC is a non-negotiable product that we can't get to? Fine. Okay. Well, do we feel like that meets our body failing us, to our sort of passion for the sport dwindling, our passion for that competition at the elite level dwindling? We're not going to know, right? Because I agree with you that he's obviously very tough, mentally durable, etc. But when you make an actual considered choice within yourself to say, I kind of think I'm going to start moving on in life, that detracts drastically away from where you are. Now, I was going to say exactly the same point as Paul did earlier, which is 50 grand is a lot of money, boys. 50 grand is a lot of money. And at 37, nearly 38, 50 grand is an even bigger sum of money. We've no idea, obviously, contract negotiations, what he signed on, etc. But the blueprint is there. And if you're 1 foot out the door, you might as well go out with a bang. Because I'm not sure a win against Yair Rodriguez does secure him a title shot. And if it does secure him a title shot, I'm not sure that we've said about signing death warrants if you're beating Michael Chandler. Jesus. I don't know about Patricio Pitbull winning a UFC title at 38, 39, 145 pounds.
A tall order for sure. I think we're at a really strange position at the top of the 145 pound division with the fact that Ilya has kind of vacated the title, and we could be coming into a period of time at 145 pounds, Shawnee, that we could see the title change hands over the next little while. We have Aaron Pico that's coming into the UFC too. I'm sure he's going to be throwing his hat into the ring as well. I really fancy Aaron Pico to go in there and do some good things in the 145 pound division. It's interesting times at 145. I mean, we capped it, or we started the conversation with the title fight. We won't finish it here, but it kind of, we've come full circle in terms of where the 145 pound division is at right now.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because of all that. Like, if Patricio does win, he very much could be calling for a title shot here. As I said, as you made the point earlier on, maybe the performance has something to do with that. But, just 2 last points for me. One, counterpoint to Harry's point about retirement, MMA retirement. And one other point, here's a fucking mad stat for you. Since Frankie Edgar fraud checked Yair Rodriguez in 2017, he has won 4 times. 4 wins since 2017. I might be changing my pick again. I might be changing my pick in every fucking fighter.
This preview show has completely blown up my world in terms of picks, to tell you the truth. But let's get to the last fight on the main card. It's Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. And we get the old wave.
I thought he was dead. He was dead.
We won't stop too much on this fight, but I think Dominic Cruz is a real live dog in this fight. Or Dominic Reyes, sorry, not Cruz. Dominic Reyes is a real live dog in this fight. I think he's kind of found his mojo again, and he's coming in against the guy Nikita Krylov, who's very hittable. And I think he's the underdog coming into this, Shawnee. I know you did the bet show. Is he the
He is.
I looked at the odds earlier in the week, and that was the one that stuck out to me. I think Dominic Reyes to win this fight straight up is probably the bet of this card, to be honest.
I think it is. The only problem is I don't know, do I fully trust him yet? He's like a boyfriend that cheat on you and you take him back. It's like, is he going to do it again? Like, is he going to get fucking sparked by someone who maybe shouldn't spark him again? The other thing I would say is that this is one you bet on, because what has Nikita Eat Pray Krylov been doing for the last 2 years? Like, he had 3 wins in a row in 2023, and then he went out fighting a war. Like, there was rumors that he was missing and stuff for ages.
You flat out said you flat out killed him. You know what I mean?
I thought he was dead, but he's back. He's back. Is it him? Who knows? It might even be Nikita Krylov betting Dominic Reyes. You have to. It might be him. It might be a lookalike.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it is actually. We'll have to get in contact for the blood samples, maybe for the drug test to confirm his DNA or something, Johnny. I'll leave that one with you anyway, my friend. let's quickly take a look at the prelim section of the card, and we got to stop at the first one, like the first prelim that we're going to discuss here. Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson, Paul. Great fight here, and Woodson has been doing his thing, working his way up the rankings, and this is a big opportunity for him and one that he's been looking for quite some time.
Yeah, Ige's hanging on, I think, 15th spot in the featherweight rankings, and Woodson's earned a crack at him now. And Woodson's the guy with the momentum here. Like I said earlier, momentum is huge in this sport. He's on a really good run. Ige, I think something like 3 of the last 4 fights or something like that he's lost. So, yeah, a difficult fight, and we're going to find out what level Sean Woodson is at this weekend.
We certainly are. I know, Shawnee, you big Sean Woodson fan, Sean. Yeah, I'm sure you're delighted to see him get this opportunity, and we're going to find out. I think he's flirted with a fight maybe one step down from this before and failed, but he's been shown the form that he's ready for a test like this, and it'll be a tricky test for him as well. In Dan Ige, who is like very, very kind of tenacious in his style and will stand in front of you and try and get that jab off. But it's not easy to do it against a guy like Sean Woodson, who fights and knows how to fight with his body shape and his length as well. So I think he ticked off a lot of boxes, and I'm very excited to see if he can make the jump to the next step.
Yeah, he's the most unorthodox fighter in the UFC, I think, is what Sean Woodson is, because he looks so weird, but he's like a good, lovely technical fighter. His limbs are so long. He's a lovely jab and a lovely backhand and lovely combinations. He's just a very good fighter. I love a bit of Sean Woodson. Dan Ige is a similar fighter, but with a very different frame. He throws his jab, he throws his right hand, he throws bits and pieces of combos. I just think Sean Woodson is the younger, better fighter, and I think he's going to win. He's probably going to win a decision. He might lash a big one into him here, but 13-1-1, as you said, Ian, time for him to be moved on and move up the division, and I think this is the right matchup. I think this is very, very good matchmaking. We don't see a lot of that from these UFC matchmakers, but this is a good one. I fancy Woodson to win here.
100%. Harry, your thoughts?
Well, Sean Woodson, a decent spot on Team Harry. I think I wrote about Sean Woodson 3 times for the Severe Spotlight, so he's definitely up there in terms of being picked. I'm massive fan of Sean Woodson. I think the problem in this one for him, or at least the biggest challenge in this one, is going to be the athleticism of Dan Ige. He definitely has it in the locker, and it can cause a problem. Sean Woodson is very used to being able to fight at the very, very apex of his jab and the very, very apex of that right hand. We talk a lot about long fighters being able to fight long, and Sean Woodson can do it really, 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 really well. Dan Ige can cover distance very, very quickly. And so I'm really interested to see whether the Woodson footwork is up to scratch in order to keep him at that range and keep Ige at the end of that jab and the apex of that right hand. If he is, I agree with everything the lads have said. I think he wins the decision. But if not, and Dan Ige can get to those hips and can land his own shots when he's inside the range, it's going to be a tough fight. Indeed
it will. Paul, I'll throw it over to you for maybe a quick look at the rest. I know we have a couple of other interesting fights on the card. One in particular stands out to me. Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper is an interesting enough one. It'd be interesting to see how that one goes. Darren Elkins, Julian Erosa should be absolute madness. Yan Xiaonan versus Verna Jandiroba, really interesting fight there in the women's flyweight division. Any thoughts on those fights?
I did a preview of the prelims for Fight Bananas earlier, and those 3 fights were 3 of the ones that I highlighted. So Zhao Nan and Virna Jandiroba is pretty much a number 1 contender fight, isn't it? Because Zhang Weili now isn't going to have that Shevchenko fight. So that's an interesting one, because Jandiroba's been on a good run, 4 wins in a row. So this is our opportunity now to go in there against someone who's already fought for the title, and Yan Xiaonan bounced back from that with a brilliant performance against Tabitha Ritchie in UFC Macau, which I think was in November or December. So that's as high level a matchup as that division is going to get. And Jim Miller has the chance to draw level with Charles Oliveira for the most finishes in UFC history, should he pull it off this weekend. He's already got the most appearances inside the octagon, the most appearances at lightweight, the most wins at lightweight. And if he gets a finish, he'll be level with Charles Oliveira since moving up to the lightweight division. So an interesting, just a couple of generations apart. And then the other one we mentioned, Darren Elkins, another record breaker. I think he's at the most appearances in the featherweight division. And Juicy J is in against him. He's on his 3rd UFC stint, but this one's been going a lot better results-wise than the other 2. So they're probably the 3 picks from the prelim card, I would say.
Yeah, indeed. Any thoughts yourself, lads, on those fights?
I'm just absolutely raging that I didn't pick Jim Miller as my flyer of the week at plus 600 against Jay Super. I'm absolutely fucking raging that I didn't give that. He could win that fight. He could absolutely. I actually think he will win that fight.
Oh, I'd be throwing some money down on that for sure. Like, I mean, they're definitely going to get good value for money on that. Like, Chase Hooper has it. Like, Jim's been looking. He's a little bit long in the tooth now, but he's been looking good, and he's a tricky test. Like, I think it's kind of a step up that Chase Hooper needs, but he's been showing miniature improvements. But Jim can get you on the feet. And what's Chase Hooper going to do? Is he going to try and take him down and submit Jim Miller? That's not an easy thing to do either. Like, the avenues for Chase Hooper to win this fight are very, very small, if you ask me.
I'm raging with myself. He has improved an awful lot, though, and he's improving at a stage of your career where he probably should be improving. And he's becoming more of a man. He's filling out into his frame as well. Like, I wouldn't rule him out, but he's an 8-1 favorite. Like, that's crazy, absolutely crazy. Altogether, I don't know where they're getting that. You know what's interesting is like some of the betting lines. Not to talk too much about betting, but like Jan Jidova is the favorite against Yan Xiaonan. I think that's a bit odd too. Like, I think Yan Xiaonan is a good, solid decision fighter. Like, but yeah, there's a bit of money to be made on this card if you want. But can I ask you this question, as before we go? Right, let's say Michael Chandler falls out and someone has to go in to replace Paddy Pimblett. They pick from one of these, right? Yair, Patricio, John Silva, right? So one of those three. Do you think Paddy Pimblett can beat any of those three? Yair, Patricio, or John Silva? And they'd all be moving up.
He could beat Yair, no problem.
I agree.
I think he probably take Yair down. I wouldn't say no problem. I think there's no such thing as no. With all due respect, Paul. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Like, I think just with Paddy Pimblett, I don't think there is with any problem with Paddy Pimblett in the waist. He has a tendency to find problems for himself sometimes too.
Head kick city. That's fucking head kick city. Yeah, you're kick the head off him. Like,
yeah. It's interesting. What we really want though as a co-main event is Juicy J Rosa. We want to see that rematch. I said that already. That's what we want to do. See Paddy puking up some chocolate milk inside of the cage.
5 rounds again. 5 rounds again.
Yeah. Was that the last time Paddy went 5 rounds?
I think so.
I think he went 5 rounds against Nad Narimani.
Yeah, right. I talked about it at the weekend. Like, he's what is he? 1 and 2 in 5 rounds, and the one he won was Julian Erosa. The one he won was Julian Erosa. So,
yeah, interesting times. And maybe to cap off the conversation and round it up as well, it's been a drab old time in the world of mixed martial arts, especially inside the UFC over the last little while. We need this card.
Not if you're Irish, Ian. Not if you're Irish.
Not if you're Irish. Obviously, we had the Irish success, but overall, I think the Apex cards and everyone was feeling a little bit down in the dumps if you weren't from Ireland over the last couple of weeks / months. This card is absolutely action-packed. On paper, it absolutely delivers. Let's hope, because mixed martial arts needed, the UFC needed, this card needs to deliver. I hope it does on Saturday night. Alexander Volkanovski, I'm sure, will be dancing all night till the break of dawn if he gets that title shot. And I'm very, very excited.
I will fall for you over again. Legend. Come on, Volk. Let's go.
I love it.
Someone mute that man.
Yeah, that's it from us. That's the UFC 314. Enjoy the fights. We'll be down to break it all down next week. Take care. Good luck.